Hey guys, welcome back to the Bro and the Pro podcast, where we hope to help you reach your full potential, whether that be inside or outside the gym. I'm your main host, self-proclaimed gym bro, Jeremy So, and today I'm joined with a very special guest. I've known Scott for a while. I've known of him for a very long time, back when the Arnold's was around, and especially at Culture 24/7, where his picture was, he had a portrait up. We had a portrait up of you in our gym. So I've known your face for a while and your physique. So I would say he is one of the most experienced and notable coaches here in Australia. He's a successful bodybuilder, as well as runs a successful coaching team as well. Welcome to the podcast, Scott Goble.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for that very kind greeting. I'm looking forward to having a chat. So I guess I'm officially classified as the pro. The only pro card I've ever had was a pro judging card, but I can produce that evidence if necessary. Never actually turned pro myself, but got a few pros on the team now, so we'll just run with that.
The pro creator, so the pro coach.
There you go.
To go with that.
Sure.
I would say you're also the dad of bodybuilding here in Australia, right?
Yeah, I've been dubbed with that moniker. I was not a fan of Gym Dad when it was first put to me, but that is apparently my role, and that's how people see me. So I better just lean into it. I think I'm certainly old enough to be the dad of some of my clients.
Yeah. Well, like if I think about it, the gym bro and the gym dad sounds really good. This is the gym bro and the gym dad podcast.
I like it. Sounds good.
Sweet, man. So let's get started. So let's talk a little bit about who you are, where you started, and how did you get into coaching, and obviously the bodybuilding industry as well.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, I've always been fascinated with muscle from a very, very young age. I was into it. I started training when I was 14. So I was always passionate about it. I wanted to be Mr. Olympia when I was 14. Like that was my goal. I got a little bit sidetracked from 18 to 23, where I also wanted to be drunk and stoned and chase girls. But outside of that little 5-year window, I've been pretty committed to bodybuilding. So I've always been interested in weight training, and that guided my education. I selected biology and PE and all that sort of stuff in the latter years of high school, so I could get into the course I wanted, which was an exercise physiology degree. So through uni, I was very passionate about my studies. I did very well in the things that would apply to me, all the physiology and biomechanics and things like that. I was always a high distinction. And then the things that I was less interested in, I can't remember what it was like weird little health management subjects and things like that. I would barely get a passing grade. But that sort of led me to professional work within the fitness industry. And I just did all your usual jobs, sales rep for supplement companies, working in supplement stores, managing supplement stores, I was a sales rep for commercial gym equipment, all that sort of stuff. While I was trying to build my physique and become a competitive bodybuilder, which I only began at the age of 28. That was my first competition, despite having trained since the age of 14. And then I competed for 11 years straight. And in the 11th year, I went backwards rather than forwards. So my physique regressed. So I pulled the pin on that entirely. I was like, I'm done with competing. I only want to get up on stage if I get better, not if I get worse. And probably it was around 2007 that I started coaching people. Look, it's just been a passion ever since, and it's just grown ever since. I've become a much, much better coach since I stopped competing than when I was competing, to be honest. I think there's a level of selfishness which is required as a competitor, and I never had the energy and the empathy, I guess, at that point in time. When I was coaching people and I was competing, it'd be like, you're not hungry. You don't know what hungry is. I'm hungry. God damn it. You're not tired. You want to know what tired is? You should do what I do. So now I'm much more empathetic, and I think I've grown as a coach through investing into the psychological aspect of the sport, whereas I came into it with a very sciencey based approach, and it was sort of like, you do it this way because this is the right way to do it. And I was quite inflexible with my approach. And now, having worked with many people and understanding that humans are fallible and they've got other issues in their lives and things like that, the optimal approach is rarely optimal unless you're living an optimal life with an optimal body and optimal everything. So that's sort of how I got into it. But the coaching has really blown up over the past few years. I always saw myself as a bodybuilding coach, but as you know, I am now more known as a bikini coach.
Yeah.
It's
That's one of the questions that coming soon.
Yeah, and look, I'm not mad about it by any means. I love the girls that I work with. I have a fantastic crew of people that are getting ready for season B, and another crew ready to go for season A next year, and it just keeps rolling on. So yeah, I'm very, very happy. I'm very, very grateful to have this job. And I know people talk about gratitude. It's sort of the buzzword that everyone uses it to, sound like they're humble and whatever. But the reality is when I started competing, there were no bodybuilding coaches. The profession did not exist. My first show in 2004, I went to the guy that owned the gym and he would look at me and he would say, you need to do more cardio. And I'd be like, okay, how much? And he'd go, do 2 hours a week. Okay, cool. I'll go off and do that. And then, you'd come back and in a couple of weeks, I'd hit a few posts for him and he goes, drop your carbs. Okay. How much should I drop? Do 0 carbs for, a week. All right, cool. I'm on 0 carbs for a week. Yeah, it was just very, very random. It was not structured or organized whatsoever. And the fact that it's now become a profession and it's almost like I designed my life for this job, I studied exercise physiology, I became a bodybuilder, I did everything to sort of build up to being a good coach, even though the profession didn't exist. So the fact that it has become a profession and one that you can make a nice living off doing something you love, it's worked out fantastic for me. So I timed my rise in bodybuilding, my education perfectly, I think, to land in this position. So I'm very, very lucky.
It's crazy how times obviously when you were competing, as you said, you didn't feel like you had as much empathy as you do now. And I think back then the mindset was way different, right? Like even when I was competing, I was only about 9 years ago when I did my first show. It was way different. It was way more carefree. My coach was kind of like, yeah, have a high carb day on Sundays. And he will be like, I'll be like, so how much carbs do I eat? And he'll just be like, just eat a whole bunch of carbs. And I'm like, all right, eat a loaf of bread, eat all this cereal. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's how I did my first show. Posing wasn't even a thing. No one told me how to pose until 2 or 3 weeks out. I'm like, oh shit, do I need to learn how to pose? He didn't even mention that to me. It was very carefree. It wasn't as I guess more meticulous than it is now. It's people want to know to the gram how much I'm having, and when should I start posing? What tan do I get? This is 20 weeks out, and it's way more detailed now compared to what it was back then.
100%, yeah. It's a much higher stakes now, and it's a competitive industry. As a coach, you need to perform in order to keep getting clients and all that sort of stuff. So the professionalism keeps getting raised, but just the methodologies are just improving all the time. Back when I competed, there was no fatigue mitigation. It didn't exist. You're tired? Go do your cardio. Your weight loss is stalled and you feel like death. Your weight loss is stalled. We'll cut your calories. It was that. The way we go about it these days is far more scientific, and I think as a byproduct of that, we're putting much better physiques on stage. So yes, it is a bit of a case of if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have been a far superior bodybuilder. But at the same time, some of the hard lessons were learned back then, and I think they sort of built resolve and resilience and everything else, and that serves you well later in life. So I'm not angry about it by any means, but I used to just run myself into the ground. That's how I prepped. I tried to just outwork and outsuffer people. That was my theory going into a show, and I honestly believe that was how it was done. The person who is closest to death will win. That was what my first bodybuilding coach told me. So I tried to take myself to the brink of death.
I agree. I think it's that saying, when Phil Heath, Kai Green was going through that period, it's if genetics work hard, and then what's that saying go? Do you know the saying?
Yeah. Hard work beats genetics if genetics don't work hard.
Yes, exactly. So I always felt because my genetics weren't the best, I was well, I'm just gonna work harder than the competition. And sleep and stress, oh yeah, I'll go to sleep hungry, wake up in the middle of the night, going to the toilet all the time, dreaming about food, wake up shit, did I just eat food? That feeling. And it's just but then that was stuff I'll never tell my coach, because it wasn't something we even factored it into coaching. It was kind of you just do the work, you just get a plan. I didn't talk to him till I saw him maybe when he saw face-to-face check-in, and that was it. That was all
Yep.
we did. You know, there's no mitigation of any of these variables that, like, obviously nowadays there's a lot more evidence-based research that allows you to understand, okay, these are very important factors, guys. Like, if we can manage this, and that's why the standard just keeps improving now compared to what it was back then.
Yeah, absolutely. Across the board, we can seek out experts in any field. If you want to become an expert in PEDs, we know who to go to learn from. If you want to become an expert in programming, we can go here. If you want to become an expert in nutrition, you can go here. We've got access to all of this information now, which is just incredible for the up and coming coaches. They're really, really lucky, because it was very much trial and error back in the day. That was the approach. See if this works. All right, cool. Yeah. Let's try that and hope for the best.
And mostly, as I guess, like, the truth is like, you know, at the end of the day, we make the best estimated guesses based on our knowledge and experience, right? It's not going to be, you know, like the guy was just like, oh yeah, just drop your carbs. Yeah, just do a bit more cardio. That's pretty much what we kind of do. We're like, oh yeah, you know, data says that, yeah, just do more cardio. let's do this. And you kind of manage a few things. It's not like it's set like, oh, I want to know the game plan for the next 20 weeks. You're like, okay, I could give you a game plan, rough plan, but whether or not your lifestyle actually allows it or your body doesn't respond, then we've got to change things up. You know?
Yeah.
So
it's very true. And I was even having this conversation with a client yesterday. We were implementing a new carb cycling approach, and she was asking, you know, why does it work? And I said, well, it works. You know, we're in a deficit over this period of time, and we implement this high carb day. It's going to wash away your fatigue. It's going to ensure you have enough glycogen to maintain your performance, potentially address inflammation, rah, rah, rah. But the main reason it works is because on average, your net calories are lower.
Yes, exactly. They don't know that. Like,
and that's the reality, you know. Like,
yeah, when you combine the total weekly calories, you're like, yeah, it's actually lower, but in your mind, you're thinking you're having more carbs on one day, and all of a sudden, this placebo is, bam, I'm gonna train harder because I'm eating all these carbs.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So.
Yeah. It's crazy how the industry it is pretty much like that, but it's enjoyable now. It's definitely like, you know, you started with a passion back then. And how was your competing journey for the 11 years that you were competing? So how many shows did you win? How many shows, like, what was your goal? So obviously, did you go straight into bodybuilding? So you waited a while till you actually jumped on stage. Was it because you wanted to be very competitive when you did bodybuilding straight off the bat, or?
There was only bodybuilding. Yeah, there was no classic and there was no physique. So you had the choice of bodybuilding or bodybuilding. So my first show, I did novice bodybuilding, and I came second in my first show. My next show, I won the novice at the States and then came second at nationals. And then my third comp season, I won the super heavyweights at States and came fourth at nationals. And then from there, I was winning States and nationals super heavyweights 4 years in a row. But there were no pro cards on offer. There were no pro cards. Like, to win a pro card, you had to go to the World Championships, which were drug tested and really, really hard to get to, or you had to win the Arnold Classic America overall. I had one crack at that, and it was way out of my depth over there. So I wasn't going to turn pro there. And then when Tony started having more influence over the IFBB here and bringing in FitX and the Arnold Classic, then the pro cards were up for grabs. And then I transitioned over to that. But the year I had the best chance, I found myself up against Josh Lenardowitz. So that chance was pretty much eradicated. But that was my best ever look, and probably my sort of opportunity where I could have obtained a pro card. But Josh was Josh, you know, like he was a top 10 Olympian and he smoked me. And, that was it. The next year I sort of went a little bit backwards due to age and injuries and whatever else, and pulled the pin. So I think I did like 25 shows in total, and won I don't know, 15 of them or something like that. Like, I had a good run. Like, I'm very happy to have 4 super heavyweight Mr. Australia titles and all that sort of stuff. And I do explain that to my clients, that a lot of them are so focused on obtaining a pro card, but there's a lot of honor in being a high level amateur in this country. Like, we've got a really, really good scene. It's very, very competitive. I still have people come up to me to this day and say, "Oh, you're a real inspiration to me." And I've always followed you. You know, it's a real honor to meet you. All this sort of stuff, which is mind-blowing because I'm just an amateur bodybuilder, you know. But we do have a platform as amateurs in this country to influence people and represent the sport well and enjoy your time on stage. Like, the reality is, if you turn pro, probably fame and fortune isn't coming your way anyway. So you may as well enjoy your amateur career and hope for the best. And if you turn pro, congratulations. You're one of the absolute elite. And hopefully you can make your mark on the international stage, but that's a whole other ball game again.
That's a whole other ball game. Yes, it's like a second level. All of a sudden, you become like a beginner when you become a pro. It's pretty much like that. Like I see it, and I'm like, man, these guys are big. Like especially because they then like now they have the amateur classic physique weight caps, and then you've got like pro classic physique weight caps, and you kind of like, wow, there's a big disparity that it's almost like you have to gain like 6 kilos as a guy, like already if you're already at your peak, if you feel like you're at your peak, then you have to gain 6 kilos extra to even stand on top with these American guys. So it's like kind of crazy. But one thing I want to mention, it's like, you did 25 shows, right? Which is a lot of shows. And when people go into their first show now, I'm sure you have clients who are like, I want to win my pro card straight off the bat. And you're kind of like, what do you say to them?
Yeah, look, I do have this conversation a lot, and I say, well, I don't want to give away. I don't want to give away all my secrets. They'll realize I'm psychologically manipulating them. But basically, I'll say, fantastic. That's a great goal. What you've got to do first is win novice Mr. Victoria. And if you win that and you win the Open, then you go to national and so on. But most of the time, I say to them, look, I think your goal for the first time you get on stage should be to get on stage, present in great condition, and see what happens. Like the reality is, if you were entering any other sport, you would not expect to win the first time. If you said, I'm going to run a marathon next year, do you expect to win the marathon? Of course not. Like any sport that you take up, there's generally a process of moving up through the ranks. And I explain to them that they will get better, they will present better. I will get better as a coach going through the process with them. We'll be able to achieve more and more. Their motivation will go up from show to show. And it's probably unrealistic for the vast majority of people to turn pro on their first go. And there is no shame in getting up there and coming second in your first show. Like it's in fact, it's a massive accomplishment. In fact, getting to the stage is an accomplishment. So I do encourage people to just focus on the process more so than the outcome for their first show. Establish a good baseline for their physique. This is what I look like for this show. If you keep beating that physique year to year, and you will move up through the ranks, it's inevitable. And if you ultimately fulfill your potential, and your potential is pro-worthy, you will get there. But it is funny that you hear that often in this sport. I want to turn pro, and they've never competed before. I can't imagine that applying to any other sport. It's just, it seems outrageous to me. I'm going to start playing golf. I plan on going. I plan on doing 18 holes in 3 under par. Good luck. It's not going to happen. And the chances are people won't turn pro the first time either, unless they're a genetic phenomenon.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's like having that vision, but it's good to have that drive to be like, okay, I want to turn pro, because at least your work ethic is going to be like on the best that it could possibly be. But it can also deter people sometimes at some point, like, if they don't get the result they want, they just feel very disheartened. And as a coach, obviously you try your best to be like, look at the journey. And obviously you probably know as well, like when you have a lot of clients say they want to do season B this year, you have a whole bunch of clients like, okay, I'm gonna do season B, but how many people actually make it to season B? Do you have like a lot of that? Yeah,
it's probably about 20%, I would say, drop out. For my, about a 20% attrition rate. So if I start with 10 people getting ready for season B, normally 8 hit the stage. And I would sort of think that that's a relatively good outcome. People do drop off. And look, for a multitude of reasons, some of them which are very legitimate: injury, illness, major upheaval in the family, whatever it may be. So a lot of the time, that's, the reality of contest prep. You need everything in your life to be aligned in order to get on stage and present at your best. And if it's not, then perhaps you should just wait for another season. But the first time competitors, I would definitely encourage them to just get on stage. Like that was, my expectations were get on stage, get some pictures of me in great condition. Like that was my first show. That's all I wanted to achieve. And I achieved that, and I sort of learnt that there was some potential there, and I enjoyed the process, and I, felt really empowered from overcoming all the challenges and everything else. And that's what kept bringing me back year after year, and eventually moved up through the ranks. So for everyone that's thinking about competing, just just do it. Just get up there. That would be my advice, because you might get up there once and decide, you know what, this is not for me. You know, the payoff is not worth the effort that goes into it. Or you might get up there, have enormous potential, and absolutely love the experience. Great. It shows every 6 months. Keep going.
Yeah, and just enjoy that process, because the journey at the end is only like 2 minutes on stage, or 5 minutes on stage, or however long it might be. And you do all that work, all those hours of cardio, like the amount of time you put into prep, weighing your food, weighing yourself, check-ins, all this stuff, practicing posing, and you're only up there for 10 minutes. Like 10 whole minutes compared to the hundreds of hours or like you would have spent prepping.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, it's a very short window to get exposed in front of the judges up there. So, and that's the other thing, like, if you slip up with your presentation, most first timers don't present like pros. Let's be honest, like it's very, very hard. You have to learn what it's all about. I remember after my first competition, I was super excited to get a DVD. Like Tony Doherty sent me a DVD. He even put a personalized little note on it. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to see it, because I felt like I had presented really well. And, this is actually my second comp where I won the novice division. I was super excited. And Tony's little note said, mate, you were the star of the show. Congratulations. Hope to see you back again. Good promoting by Tony. He got me back again. So, I raced inside. I put this DVD on. I couldn't wait to watch it. And then when I watched myself pose, I looked like a complete idiot. I never watched it again. And half the time, because I was concentrating so hard and I had a dry mouth, I'm like this, just concentrating with my tongue, like I was Michael Jordan or something. And I just I watched it and I was horrified. And I was just like, I'm never watching that again. My presentation was just not up to scratch, and I thought I'd done well. So, you get reality checks when you first get on stage, and it's good. You can choose to learn from them, or you can, choose to throw in the towel.
Like, no matter how much you practice, even your posing, the feeling of being up there, the nerves, the anxiety, and I felt like a deer in headlights. I was just like, just eyes open, trying to smile. It's like, oh shit, my lips are dry. What am I supposed to do? All the heat, and then you start maybe sweating a little bit because it's hot, and then you start feeling. But once you have that feeling, it's something you can always practice, visual training for the future comps, because now okay, what it feels like to be up there, and that just builds that confidence every single time.
100%, and that was how my posing practice evolved. I was. And I still stress this to my competitors, I'm a big fan of quality over quantity when it comes to posing practice. I mean, at first you need repetitions to learn the poses and everything else. Yeah. But once you've got the actual poses down, I'm a big believer you pose as if it's stage conditions. And that's what I would do. I didn't pose for long. I posed for 10, 15-minute bouts, but I posed as if I was on stage. I would pose without a mirror. I would pose, in between poses, I'd go back to my relaxed pose. My legs would always be on. My waist would always be tight. I would replicate stage conditions. So I'd build that stage level conditioning. And it would serve me well in the end. I won some shows based on posing towards the end of my career, whereas at the start of my career, I was incapable of doing that. So, you should learn and get better from every show.
Posing is very good. Key to just to get started and get into your first show. That's
100%.
Sweet. So being one of the best teams in Australia, obviously you got Team Goble. You just started it up this year. Was that correct? Or
last year started.
Last year. Perfect. So you now got coaches on board and everything like that. So tell us a little bit about your vision for Team Goble. So obviously I'm assuming you're pretty booked out and now you want to grow a team, correct?
Yeah, look, the reality is I can only handle so many clients myself. When I work in collaboration with other coaches, I can handle more because they're doing a lot of the work for me. So I've got Josh Birch, who's based. They're both based in Perth, actually.
They're
Josh, and Alice Round, both fantastic coaches in their own right. Josh has got quite a few clients that he's sort of overseeing, and Alice has only got a handful because she's got her own very busy business on the side as well, where she focuses more on women's health and pre and postnatal and all that sort of stuff. So she wants to just keep the comp prep work sort of separate from that under my banner. Look, I hope to expand the team. I'm very excited to work with Josh because Josh is just like a younger version of me, with hope, potential, better looking,
Actually, I see one of those posts. He's like, he's a better looking kid.
He's still got good knees. I'm very envious of Josh. So I see him as probably outgrowing the team at some point because for his age, he's really, really good. And he'll probably, I think he will establish himself as a very strong competitor in the near future as well and have his own name and reputation. But hopefully he hangs around long term because I love working with him. I love having Alice working with me because she does have a different skill set than me. And ultimately, that's what I want to do. I want to build a team which has different areas of expertise. So that I can cater for more people and do a better job, and we can collaborate and work together and address any potential client's issue. So I would love to have a coach has their expertise might be on sort of behavioral eating type issues. So, maybe they've got experience with binge eating disorders and all that sort of stuff. So we can utilize their skill set. Alice, like I said, has got a fantastic skill set with pre and postnatal, but she's pretty good on the digestive health side of things as well. And look, over time, I would love to have, 4, potentially 5 coaches working under me. And they could all handle a handful of clients themselves or, a dozen clients themselves. And I can handle mine specifically, and we can all sort of lean on each other so that we can provide a higher level of service and a greater level of expertise than anyone else can. That's ultimately the goal. So we'll see how it goes. I'm super stoked with the 2 coaches I've got on board at the moment. And I would like to expand, but not in the near future. I already know who the 3rd coach is going to be. Yeah. But the specific skill set I would love to fill is that sort of behavioral and disordered eating, like that. I see that coming up more and more and more,
especially in bodybuilding. Oh gosh, it's actually really, really bad in bodybuilding. Yeah, it
is. And look, I remember I attended a seminar where Eric Helm spoke, and basically he said everyone that finishes a bodybuilding contest has disordered eating. Like there are studies and there are markers of disordered eating, and when you come out of a bodybuilding prep, 100% of people have some form of disordered eating, because of the emphasis we put on food. So I would love to have someone on the team which has the skill set that says, okay, this is the issues, this is how we get out of it, this is how we reestablish a good relationship with food and everything else. I'm trying to figure it out myself, but I've only got so much time to dedicate to research and study and everything else. So ultimately that's the vision for the team, is to have 4 or 5 coaches underneath me, all different skills and the ability to cater to anyone's needs.
Yeah. Lovely. That sounds really good. And, with the, obviously, like behavioral eating, the eating disorders is obviously a huge thing. Obviously, weighing your food, macros, the whole lot, that does affect you mentally if you are a bodybuilder. But then you've got to kind of do that if you are planning to compete. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever blown out after comp?
Me? Oh yeah, after every comp almost. The first time I competed, I put on 21 kilos in 21 days post show.
Oh shit! Okay,
so 3 weeks later, I was 21 kilos heavier. So yeah, that was my first experience, and I don't know. My mindset back then, I didn't really care. Like it didn't. I was a guy. I was huge. I'm huge now. This is great. What's the problem? I know there's a massive indentation when I take my socks off, but you should see how jacked I am. So it didn't.
That Dima kicks in.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I blew out post show probably my first 4 or 5 seasons in a fairly dramatic way, and I didn't really understand the potential health ramifications or anything like that. And obviously I got better and better at it as I progressed through my career. But that was a thing for sure. Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that we all go through, no matter how much we tell a client, look, you've got to do the reverse diet, you got to recover from this. You can say it as much as you want, but a lot of them just just enjoy eating, and you're just like, well, we just got to deal with it because, personally, we all went through it, but my coaches back then never really talked about it. They were just like, oh, I'll see you next show. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I just go and eat. There's no control. And obviously nowadays there's obviously evidence-based research to suggest that, yeah, you shouldn't do that and all the reasons for it. But then back then it was just kind of like, oh yeah, I'll just see you next show. I'll just diet again. And I did take a lot from, I think, Lee Priest back when he used to eat like those KFC and stuff. And I was like,
Lee Priest is a role model. Not a good idea. Just as a general rule of thumb.
Yes. I didn't know that back then. Right? I was just kind of like, oh yeah, if Lee Priest does it, it must be all right. Sweet. So another question we have, do you see anything wrong with the coaching industry at the moment? Anything that you see wrong?
Oh, look, yes, but I don't like to harp on the negatives. Like the reality is the coaching industry is getting better and better and better all the time. And there are, really good coaches out there that care and want the best for their clients. And like I said, the research is becoming more and more accessible, and there's no reason for bad coaching. Now, that's not to say there aren't bad coaches out there. There are, but I feel like they eventually get exposed, and they're only going to be able to last so long. So, it is a problem when people without qualifications do one show and then claim to be a contest prep coach. But I don't know. I also believe that despite all my studies and all my, competitions that I did, I became a far, far better coach with experience. Like the only way to become a really good coach is to coach people. So I was a disaster of a coach with my first client. I literally ruined my first client because she did exactly what we were talking about. She blew out post-show. So she did a show, she blew out post-show, and I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't care. I blew out post-show. What's the big deal? So she'd be like, oh, God, it's 3 weeks. I'm up 8 kilos. And I'd be like, 8 kilos? That's nothing. I was up 21 kilos, and then she'd be like, oh, I feel really bad. I'm thinking about doing another show. All right, cool. Let's do another show. So we'd back it up with another comp. And then she'd blow out worse and her calories would end up lower for that show. And then she's like, now she's put on 10 kilos. Oh, man, I'm really uncomfortable. I hate this. I need to do another show to get back in shape. Cool. Let's do it. Let's do another show. And this time her calories were even lower to get her on stage and her cardio was even higher. And then she blew out even worse. And I didn't stop this cycle. I was just like, and then, I just didn't know any better. I was not a good coach. This is 2007. Well, we're into 2008 now. So I think she did 4 seasons back-to-back, season A, season B, season A, season B. And every one of those preps was worse and worse and worse because every time her starting position was fatter with a slower metabolism, essentially. And it took her probably, believe it or not, I'm still friends with this girl. She should hate me. It took her a good 2 years to recover from that. Like literally, she had everything. She had the adrenal fatigue. She had the shattered metabolism. She had it. Or she had digestive issues. She had disordered eating patterns. She had it all. Like it was a disaster. Ended up turning IFBB pro, believe it or not. So,
oh, wow. Yeah,
not through my guidance, but yeah. So we learn through coaching, and also look. The majority of coaching is communication and understanding your clients and things like that. And the way you upskill in that area is through communicating with people and understanding people and working with people. So it's hard to become a good coach, and I guess I was unqualified when I started coaching. I thought I was qualified, but the reality is probably none of us are until we get into it and we learn. So I don't try to get too angry about the people that are, trying to get into my profession and don't have that much experience, because how do you get the experience?
You've got to just start, right? And I think, I talked about this to, Richard, the physique code.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. He was telling me, actually, he did have a question about, he was like, ask Scott about the time where he ate 12 eggs or something along those lines as just part of your diet. Was that correct?
Yeah, he's really downplaying it. I had 12 whole eggs for breakfast, 12 whole eggs for dinner, and another 12 whole eggs throughout the day. I had 36 whole eggs a day. So this was my bodybuilding mentor back then was Don Marnie, and he was like, you should do this diet where you just saturate yourself with protein all day long. So yeah, exactly that diet. 12 eggs for breakfast, 12 eggs at night, and then with every meal throughout the day, you'd have 2 more whole eggs with your 300-gram portion of red meat. So I remember I calculated my protein. It was something like 700 grams a day.
Holy!
And
how was your digestion on that?
It did not go that well.
Okay.
There was not that much room for carbohydrates or anything at the end of it. That was the thing that caused issues in the end. I did that for about 3 months. I followed that. I was pretty dedicated. So even though I was miserable and whatever else, I was like, if this is what needs to be done, this is what I will do. At the end of it, the thing that got me was acid reflux and things like that. That undid that diet. But I did do 36 whole eggs a day.
But you just trusted your mentor at the time. You just did what needed to be done.
He was never Mr. Universe. Yeah, I was nobody.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to this guy. So yeah,
12 eggs a day. Well, 36 eggs a day.
36 whole eggs a day.
Wow, that's a lot, including the fats as well, the yolks.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the whole lot. Okay,
that's the anabolic component of the egg.
That's anabolic. Perfect. Okay, so go back to what I was saying. So yeah, Richard talks about like having soft skills and hard skills. Hard skills being obviously the education and everything that you know, and then obviously soft skills being that communication, talking to the people, communicating things across. And I think it's this balance of both. Like you have all these hard skills, but if you don't know how to communicate this to a client, they ain't going to understand. They ain't going to listen to you. And I think that's an important part of what coaching is this balance between hard skills and soft skills. And you start to realize you could have all this hard skills, but may only apply like 10% of what you know to a client because they don't need to be bombarded with extra information they don't need,
100%. Yeah. And I find that is the case. Most of the time I'm bringing my clients back to basics. I'm not, pushing for those 1%ers. I'm like, look, don't worry about, timing that amino acids around your workout because you cheated on your diet last week and we need to control energy balance. Most of the time it is bringing back people to this is really what we need to focus on. Like, are we controlling, bodybuilding 101? It is 90% of what I do is manipulate energy balance. Like that's what I do. And it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. And there's many, many different ways to manipulate it. And there's many different ways to design a diet to fit that person's lifestyle and everything else. So I try to be as flexible as possible while controlling the basics. And that's kind of what I do. And it brings about great outcomes. If you do all the basic stuff right, you're 95% of the way there. You don't have to worry about the tiny little details. So yeah, and communication is the key. I really feel like if you just tell a client what to do, they might do it if they're really, really committed, like I was back in the day. But but most of the time I tell them what to do and I try to explain in detail why we're going to do it. So they have an understanding of the process and they realize its importance. I think that's probably a key to it. But there's other things to it as well. Like just, make them laugh, try and relax them, make them feel comfortable, make them feel confident. All of that is super important as well. And I think that's most of my clients' feedback is that you always seem so calm and in control, like, whereas they're obviously stressed out of their mind. So if they come to me and I'm like, no, it's okay. We expect this. This is a potential side effect of this, or, this is a byproduct of what we're doing here. We can manipulate that and this will address that and we will carry on and move forward. And they're just like, oh, makes it seem so easy because it is pretty easy. Like it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. Dropping body fat is as simple as living in an energy deficit. All right. We live in that energy deficit until we get some significant negative repercussions, whether it's performance regression, whether it's a massive escalation of fatigue, whatever it may be, then we address that so that we can get back to living in a deficit, and then eventually all the body fat's gone. Happy days. Now we just have to manipulate a little bit of muscle volume, a little bit of glycogen, get on stage.
And then that's it, just as simple as it gets. Like you literally broke it down. You explained it so perfectly that people listening to this should understand the concepts now. It's just like it's as basic as it can be, and it's just about depending on the individual on how we're gonna approach communicating this across and explain this is what we need to be doing. And so does this suit with you? Does that make sense? And then they're on board with it. They execute it, less stress. They start to lose body fat in happy days.
Exactly right. That is it. Like we look for the limiting factors. What are the limiting factors? All right, lifestyle does not permit you to do more than 10,000 steps per day. Okay, all right, cool. So we can't really push the expenditure that much via that medium. Perhaps we can do it through, cardio because it's less times expensive. Perhaps we just do it purely through calorie manipulation. Or you get the people which are like, I refuse to be hungry. I cannot tolerate hunger. All right, look, if that's the case, we're going to try and keep your food high. Inevitably, they will be hungry. It's impossible not to be, but we will do our best to keep your food high, and you can do, 18,000 steps a day and an hour of cardio, so be it. If that's how you want to get in your deficit, that's how we'll put you in your deficit. So it's having different tools to cater for different people and understand what is their limiting factor, I think that's super important.
Love that, man. So I got another question. So people have said that you may be one of Australia's best bikini coach. What are your thoughts about this?
Look, I think I am, one of Australia's best bikini coaches. I think the runs are on the board. I've got 3 of the last 4 IFBB bikini pros I've worked with. So, I've got a great track record with it. But the reality is I'm as good as the athletes I coach. Like there are a lot of coaches out there that could have turned Laura Young pro, that could have turned Morgan Eldrack pro, because these are highly gifted, highly driven athletes. So I've been lucky to work with pro quality competitors and, through our collaboration, they've managed to get their pro card. So I love coaching the bikini girls. Like I think I have a really good understanding of what the division is, what the criteria is, and what the judges are looking for. I have the luxury of training in Tony Doherty's gym, and I talk to him on a daily basis. I have the luxury of training in the gym where Brett Rainback, the head coach, is, and I can go and ask him questions and get feedback from him. And sometimes my clients come in and I'm like, Brett, I know you're in the middle of your leg workout, but can you have a quick look at this client and tell me what you think? Do we need to get her a little bit harder here? Or, is her upper body getting too hard? Whatever it may be. I'm in a good position, and I've had a lot of success with the bikini girls, and I hope to continue to do so.
I think that's super important, especially what you do is like you actually ask questions for the federation that your clients are competing in. Obviously, in this case, the IFBB Pro League, like having that opportunity to, hey, like, can you come check out my client? I think that's such an important factor that, some of the coaches may not do, and ask questions about like, oh, what can they improve on? Do they need to be leaner? Do they need to do this? Like, even with my clients in other federations, I try to ask like the president or judges and be like, hey, like, should my client be leaner? Are they right for this division? Like, asking these sort of questions does fall down on the coach, because we want to give our clients the best opportunity they can possibly get. And I think that's an important thing that, coaches need to do. Yeah, absolutely.
And most of these people are pretty accessible. Like Damon over there in Perth is an absolute legend. Like, he's at Doherty's gym like the vast majority of the time. And if you want to get him to have a quick look at you, he's willing to do so. He is awesome. Like, he is an absolute asset to bodybuilding over there in Perth. And I get my clients, go see Damon, see what he thinks, because he's the judge. Like, he is more qualified than me. Like, he determines the criteria. Let's see what he says, and then we will try and make him happy. It's not so much about what I'm looking for or what you like. Like, and I think some coaches make that mistake. They're like, I love a really hard look. I'm going to put my girls on stage really, really hard. Cool. But if the judges don't like it, you can't get upset if if your athletes don't place well just because you like it. Your opinions don't really matter. The opinion that matters is the collective opinion of that judging panel that's in front of you when you're on stage. So, I do try and utilize those resources if I can. And, they're available to everyone. Like, there's no reason, like, especially over there in Perth, Damon's the best. Like, if you're one of my Perth clients, the chances are I've already told you to go stand in front of him and see what he has to say. But reach out to the guy. I don't think he's ever said no to anyone. Like, he just like, come in. I'm here. We'll have a look. I'll tell you what I think. Lucky.
Just easy. Like, that's as simple as it gets. And a lot of them are always happy to be like, like, they respect that. Like, the judges will be like, that's good. Like, you're bringing your clients to see me. I can like give them some detail and give you some advice on what they should be doing. And it's like, it's a really good thing to be doing for sure. Like,
absolutely. So I don't know how we got onto that, but basically I think I was saying I'm like an industry suck up that like tries to befriend all the judges, but it doesn't always pay off. Like, many times my clients have not won, and I've respect the judges, Like,
I think you have to respect the judges, because at the end of the day, they're making the decision, not you. So, like, no matter what you think or what the standard is. But that brings me to our next question. Do you think there's a big difference between like the American judging and Australia judging?
Not a big difference, no. I don't. Like, I mean, and I'm probably not qualified to answer that, because I haven't gone overseas and sat one row behind the judges like I can in Australia and see everything. But so maybe there's a little difference, maybe and look, there's little. I think there's little differences even between the judges in Australia. Like, I think Damon's a real big sort of shape guy when it comes to bikini. If it's a thing of shape versus conditioning, he'll probably lean more towards the shape girl. Whereas I think maybe Brett over here in Victoria is probably a little bit more of a conditioning guy, but they come together and we're talking minute percentage differences. And that's the reality of the sport. It is a subjective sport. There are going to be differences. And from what I understand over in America, Tyler likes a slightly different look to Sandy. And, Sandy likes a different look to, Jim or Steve or whatever it is. So even in America at the pro level, there is that level, that subjectivity, and you sort of perhaps need to cater for that judge or that judging panel to get the best chance of winning. So, yeah, I think it's pretty good, the Australian judging. I do, and again, that's me sucking up, but and perhaps it's because my clients have done well. But I think there's a good level of consistency now that perhaps was not there 5 or 6 years ago. I did have some issues 5 or 6 years ago with the judging, and I do think there was quite a difference between Australia and overseas. But I think it's pulled much more in alignment over the last three years or so.
Yeah, that was before the split, right? 5
Oh, before the split, it was just known. Yeah. It was a thing. Like,
it was way different. Yeah.
It was totally different. There was an amateur criteria and there's professional criteria, and they're different. Like, especially men's physique, it was a joke. It was like, no, you're way too big to be a men's physique guy, yet you'll still need to put on 8 kilos in order to compete in the programs. So you had to, that was a disaster back then. But and no, even since the split, I think the last few years, it's the judging's really leveled up, and I think, Tony having head judges in all the different states that all come together for nationals. He's got the A team there. I think it's pretty good, But having said that, there is only one person happy on the day, and that is the winner. Like, and when it comes to, and it is subjective. So when Morgan turned pro in season A this year, you can make arguments for every girl on that stage. Like literally in that overall, Morgan, best front pose, best walk, best presentation. Doesn't have the best back pose. Cynthia Thompson, spectacular conditioning, best back pose on stage, perhaps didn't have the muscle volume. Beck, least flaws. Beck Taylor has the least flaws on stage. Front pose good, back pose good, everything good, but didn't quite win anything. Like, she wasn't the best in anything, but she was great, really, really good at everything. So you can make an argument for any of those girls winning the show, and you can make the argument within the bikini criteria itself. And you sort of have to just accept that that's the reality of the bikini criteria. You might not be happy with the decision, but there's grey area, there's subjectivity, there's room for interpretation, and you just have to just roll with the punches sometimes.
Yeah, I think like bikini definitely is one of the hardest sports to even judge and to coach. I could imagine coaching for it would be like, okay, we need to build your glutes and build that up. And then once you stand up next to everyone, then I can see what areas you need to work on. You're going back to obviously what you've been saying is like, just getting more like shows under your belt would just at least help, especially sticking to one coach. And so then that way you can help them be like, okay, we need to improve this for next time, so then that way you have no flaws, or we can work, that sort of area as well. But obviously, like, do you feel like there is, there's this, well, we've heard that, a lot of clients go between you and Troy because you guys are like Australia's both best bikini coaches. So what do you think about that? Or I have had clients come from Troy to me. I've had clients go from me to Troy, and that's fine, because again, there is no best coach, because certain methodologies, certain approaches, certain styles of communication might suit particular individuals differently. So perhaps the way Troy communicates resonates more with you. Like, he's probably a little bit more hard hitting, like not abrupt or anything, but just direct and to the point. And for some people that might resonate, and they might just buy in even more and get a better outcome as a result. Whereas with me, I might take a more relaxed approach and I'll tailor things more towards your lifestyle, and that might be better for you. So yeah, look, Troy's obviously got the skill set. Like, he's got fantastic clients and had an enormous amount of success. He's a very good coach. So yeah, cool. There's lots of competitors to go around, and you're more than welcome to try me. You're more than welcome to try Troy. If you like the way I do things, happy days. If you like the way he does things, fantastic. I wish everyone all the best. I get along well with Troy. I see him at the shows, and Yeah.
I try to calm him down when he's, incredibly angry that his clients haven't placed well, so he doesn't say anything stupid on the podcast and get in trouble again. But no, like, that's the reality. There is no best coach because we're individuals, and we are catering to the individuals, and how we relate and communicate is going to be different. So Troy's very good at what he does.
And I think that's an important note to take away is, everyone has this, like, you guys could have the exact same skill set, but the way you communicate, way you approach things to the clients, it might just suit better for them. They might be more willing. It's more about making sure clients have buy-in, that they're like, oh, I trust what you say, so I'm going to stick to it. And that's all it is, right? Like, and a lot of times when people leave to other coaches, I'm like, well, they might just communicate things better to them. And even when my clients leave me, I'll be like, that's fine. Like, they might find a coach that communicates the same ideas across better, and they might stick to it better. So that's good for them. It's not against me. It's just because maybe our coaching styles are different, and that's about it. And I think that's a really important takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's a sort of a respect thing as well. Like, you need to respect your coach. And for some people, like, I have got the feeling, like, sometimes I'm too laid back, like I'm too chill or whatever. I seem to make it seem easy or whatever, and that's unnerving. Whereas I think Troy's a little bit more intense, like, he's like, no, now, you got to do this, you got to do that. Whereas I'm just like, you could do that, like, what do you want to do? and for some people, they might not like that. They'd rather just be told, you have to do this now. And yeah, exactly. It comes down to communication. Like, at the end of the day, I think we've both got the skill set to put people on stage looking their best. And it just comes down to who you prefer.
Love it. No, that's really, really good. Thank you for that. So I guess we'll go through a few more questions. Mistakes people do wrong when competing. Any big major mistakes that people do wrong that you think?
Yeah, the biggest one, I think, is just looking too far ahead. Like I see people get overwhelmed in contest prep and just, be concerned about things that haven't even happened yet. Like, there might be at 8 weeks out and they're doing, 3 hours of cardio a week and they're on 1,600 calories or something. And they're like, oh my God, if I'm doing this now, what's it going to look like at 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out? And they're stressed about something that hasn't actually happened yet. And it's sort of like, we will see what the plan looks like at 3 weeks out. For now, you don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is get done what needs to be done today and then do the same again tomorrow. And before you know it, you'll be 3 weeks out and you'll be doing whatever needs to be done then. So I think that is the biggest thing, is just getting overwhelmed with the enormity of the task when you just need to focus on the now. Like, and I probably learned that through working with Laura Young and Morgan Elgret. Like, that they are not outcome driven at all. They are very much process driven, and they are very much, I'm going to get the most out of this day, and then I'm going to go to bed knowing that I'm feeling accomplished and being proud of my efforts, and then I'm going to repeat that tomorrow. And the outcome will inevitably take care of itself if I do that. And they have the lowest stress preps out of anyone. That none of those. Well, another pitfall is, diving into social media and seeing their competitors and stressing out that, why is this girl so lean now and I'm not that lean? Doesn't matter. Like, you're not being judged now, for starters. And the reality is, it's on Instagram, so she's found the best lighting and she's filtered it, and and it's only of her best body part. It's not of that little fat pocket that she's trying to hide. So, Laura and Morgan have never ever once sent me a picture of a girl and gone, "Do you think I can beat her?" or anything like that. They don't care. They don't care. Like, they literally, and it's probably quite intimidating competing against girls like that, because they literally don't care. They are just here to bring their best. And if they bring their best and they continue to get better, they're confident that the outcome will be favorable to them. And that I would love for that mindset to be adopted by all my clients. But I understand that's never going to be the case. But it's a great sort of philosophy to live by. Focus on the day, get off social media.
Yes, get off social media. The biggest key. Be process driven, and I think that's super important. In like what you do, like that mindset is a great philosophy to definitely follow. Like, if people can just focus on the process, take it day by day, and not worry about like what they have to do for the next 8 weeks, they're gonna be fine. Like, because then there's less stress, and that's another variable that you're completely in control of. Because you're just like, if it happens, it happens. Because at the end of the day, you can't control who you stand next to. It's all up in the air. Like, you don't know who's going to rock up to the show. You could literally be, win this like last show and then end up losing the next show because someone else, there's a whole bunch of new people to gym invest. It's exactly like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the sad reality. Like, you can get better from one show to the next and place worse.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. It comes down to who you stood next to on that stage, and that can be pretty harsh reality, but that is life in bodybuilding. But you just have to continue to get better and better and better, and eventually you will win.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for that. And so, would you rather work with lifestyle clients or comp prep clients, or are all your clients comp prep?
95% of my client base is competitors or aspiring competitors. Yeah. And that's my jam. That's what I love. That's what I get excited about. I like the high stakes. I like the pressure. I like addressing the stress and, trying to get into people's heads as the comp gets closer and like for their betterment, like try and calm them down, try to understand the process, try and explain how everything's going to work. Like, I really like that. Gen Pop, it's funny because my good mate Luke Shembry mostly trains Gen Pop, and he dabbles in comp prep. He's very, very good at it, but he's like, Gen Pop's so easy. There's more of them. Financially, it's more beneficial to do Gen Pop. They don't take up as much time. They don't blow your phone up throughout the day because they're hungry or tired or water retentive or whatever it may be. So from a commercial standpoint, it's probably in most people's best interest to focus on Gen Pop. But my jam is contest prep. I absolutely love it. I love working with highly driven individuals. So yeah, I'm gonna stay in the comp prep space as long as the comp prep space will have me.
Yes, and I definitely feel like you definitely show that, you have a lot of passion for the sport, and you can just see that. This is probably my first time actually speaking to you officially. Like, I've known of you for a very long time, but it's one of those things that I always knew you had passion for this, and that's what you're passionate about. So I just had to drop that question. So I guess one last thing. So what's one piece of advice you can give the listeners to help them level up?
I guess it depends on what field they're leveling up in, but
let's do comp prep. A lot of people going through comp prep right now. Yeah.
Look, I don't want to repeat myself, but it is going back to focus on what you can do now. Do not worry about tomorrow. Worry about today. If you're having a bad day today, just get through it. Maybe tomorrow will be a better day. That I honestly believe that is the key to a successful prep. It's just do what needs to be done in the moment. Be present. Don't worry about the comp. Like, if you take care of every single day, the comp will take care of itself. So I really feel like that's the best thing that the people can do. The other thing is, when it comes to the client-coach relationship, communication is very, very important both ways. I encourage all my clients to express anything they have on their mind. And look, in some circumstances, it might be completely irrelevant to what we're trying to achieve, but I'm still happy to hear it. And sometimes all these little clues are just, pieces of the puzzle that we're trying to put together to figure out how your body works. So even though you might think something is relatively insignificant, when you look at it from a big picture standpoint, it could be contributing in a big way to your, final outcome. So communicate with your client, with your coach. Let them know what you are feeling, what you are experiencing, what your doubts are, all these sorts of things, because it's quite possible the coach will be able to address them. And you will feel better about the process, and then the process will become less stressful as a result. Or perhaps you can refine the process and tailor it more towards your specific requirements. So yeah, communicate effectively with your coach and focus on the present, and you will be fine.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you for your time today. Honestly,
Pleasure.
It's been amazing. A lot of really good bombs that you dropped today. A lot of value that you're going to add to a lot of the people listening. So once again, thank you. So guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. And if you do have any questions, I'm sure Scott will be happy to answer any questions. And if you do have any questions, we'll love to do another podcast in the future, if you're interested. And then we can do a wrap up maybe in the part 2 of sometime into this year.
No, I'd love to. Yeah, no, it's been an honor being here. I've really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you so much, Scott. So thank you guys for listening. Cheers.